Are you and your partner or your wife, your husband, arguing about surface issues or the meanings that you have attached to them? Most couples fight about logistics. They fight about the dishes, who's taking the dog out, who's preparing dinner, who's doing what, who's taking the bin out. But beneath this is often a deeper question. Do I matter to you? Am I safe with you? When conflict shows up, are you trying to win or are you trying to understand? The goal you choose in that moment quietly shapes the future of your relationship. Is your partner reacting to what you said or to what he reminded them of? Again, in relationships, in marriages, conflict is rarely just about the present. It often activates old narratives, old wounds, attachment wounds, and unspoken fears. These are some of the things that people I'm working with or who come to me in my private practice are trying to navigate. If you are new to this channel, welcome. And if you're a returning guest, it's good to see you again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bola Ogundeji, and I am an accredited therapist with over 8 years' experience working with couples and individuals. I appreciate that whilst therapy may not be everything, in times of distress, in times of struggles, therapy offers the support that individuals and people in relationships need to navigate turbulent times and provides them with tools, strategies, and the unconditional support that they need to weather life's storms. If you are new to this channel, welcome. And if you're a returning guest, it's good to see you again. Let's dive in. As I said, conflict or managing conflict is one of those thorny issues that people that I see in my private practice struggle with. And quite frankly, a lot of people who might not even be in therapy or present for therapy might be struggling with managing conflict in their relationship. So, this topic today is looking at how to manage conflict. But before we start to unpack this, it's important to know what kind of couples are you? John Gottman says there are at least 5 types of couples. Let's look at those type of couples. Dr. John Gottman is a leading psychologist who works with couples and has been working with couples and in research for the past more than 30 years. In his research, he said there are these 5 categories of couples. One of them is conflict avoiding couples. So these are couples who minimize persuasion attempts and they focus on areas of agreement and common ground during conflict. Then you have the validating couples. Validating couples are couples who express empathy and understanding for their partner. Even when they disagree, they are known for their strong connection and ability to respectfully engage in conflict. Then you have volatile couples. Volatile couples are intensely emotional and often engage in lively debates and arguments, but maintain a high level of connection and respect. They value honesty and openness, even if it is uncomfortable. Then you have hostile couples. Hostile couples are characterized by frequent negativity, contempt, and criticism, with a lack of positive interaction. They are often more likely to be dissatisfied and experience conflict. Finally, Dr. John Gottman says there is a hostile detached couple. This group is the most unstable with a high level of negativity, contempt, and emotional detachment. They often exhibit low levels of affection and intimacy. So, in thinking about managing conflict, it's important to think, what kind of couple are you? Are you conflict avoiding? Are you validating? Are you volatile? Are you hostile? Or are you hostile detached? Esther Perel, who is a renowned relationship and erotic expert, she says what is underlying what people fight about in their relationships are centered around three key things. Or if you like, if you disaggregate them, you could say six things, but three key things. Esther Perel says these are power and control. Who's got the power in the relationship? Who's got control? Who feels controlled versus who feels like they've got the power? Closeness and care. Are we close? Do I feel cared for? These are some of the things that couples who are navigating conflict are trying to grapple with. Respect and recognition. Am I respected for what I bring, for what I contribute, for who I am? And I talked about gender differences in my last video. Sometimes these gender differences present as stressors in a relationship and during the relational stages of a relationship. So, who do I feel cared for? Do I feel close? Are we close? Have we lost our closeness? And as I said, finally, respect and recognition. Do I feel respected for what I bring as a partner? Are we even partners? Or is there an imbalance in who is powerful or who's being controlled in this relationship? Or recognition. Am I recognized for my efforts, for when I take the kids to school, put them to bed every day because my partner is working 3, 4 nights a week? Am I recognized for being the breadwinner, for bringing in the income? Am I recognized for times when I've held this family down? So, power and control, closeness and care, respect and recognition. These are the things that are underlying some of the fights, that some of the things that couples fight about in their relationship. There is also something I heard a clergy talk about recently, somebody by the name Andy Williams. He said in relationships, people are coming in with the expectation that this relationship is going to help them to self express. When I'm in this relationship, will I be able to continue to have expression in my identity, in who I am? He also said some people are coming in with the mindset that, will this relationship help me to self actualize? By choosing you, by choosing my partner, will I be able to become a better version of myself? Will you help me with my dreams? Will I be able to go the long haul to become who I want to become and what I want to achieve? And of course, in every relationship, there's the aspect of self sacrifice. Are you going to sacrifice for me so that I can have what I want in this relationship? And most times, both people might be looking at each other for that sacrifice. Will we sacrifice for our relationship to survive, to thrive? Will we sacrifice for our kids? These are all things that people might also fight about or have conflict about in their relationship. The need for self expression, the need for self actualization, and the need for self sacrifice. Self expression is about, this is who I am and this is who I want to be. Self enhancement or actualization is, you complete me, you make my life better. So that's why I've chosen you. And what happens when that seems to be far from the reality that the couples are experiencing? And the self sacrifice is, I will defer to you, I'll give myself up for you, as I said, so that you can have what you want. But what about what I want? What about what I want to achieve? In managing conflict, it's therefore really important to think about your relationship history. In my last video, I talked about why them. Why did you choose your partner? what informed those choices, what's underneath your conscious or unconscious couple choices. We talked about that in my last video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And so, in relationships, while considering conflict, it's important to think of what are your patterns in relationship. Are you the loyal one? Are you the one who's dependent? Or are you more of the one who's needy? What kind of patterns do you have? But it's also important to think of your flags. What is a green flag for you in relationship? Things that are really good for you in that relationship. Someone, whether that's someone being able to give up their give you space, whether that's somebody who's able to encourage you or be straight up with you, be honest, that might be a green flag for you. But also, it's good to think of what are your amber flags. Amber flags are those things that would be too hard for you to handle. So, in order to be able to manage conflict effectively, it's really important for you to know what are your no nos, what are your yes, yes. So, something that would be too hard for you to handle will be your amber flag. And then finally, what is a red flag for you? Before, during, or even when you're already in a relationship, things that would be too hard for you to deal with. So, the difference between amber is things that would be hard for you to handle, but in red flag, it's things that would be too hard for you to deal with. And it's really important to know what these flags might be. But also, to be able to manage conflict, is really important to know what your love language is. I bet a lot of you have heard of love language, which is from the book, The Love Language, The Five Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman, I believe. If you haven't yet read the book, go check it out. The book talks about how we all primarily have five emotional languages or love languages. And it talks about, although we all have them or speak these languages to some degree, but we have maybe one or two dominant ones. Most people will have one or two dominant ones. And these love languages are acts of service, gift, quality time, physical touch, and words of affirmation. I'm not even going to try and repeat them the same way. So, acts of service, gifts, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation. The interesting thing about our love language is that it's the way we are used to speaking or giving and receiving love. It's the way we've gotten so, if you like, we've gotten so fluent at giving or receiving love. And when we step into a new relationship, we can be tempted to speak that same language to our partners, even though they may well have their own different sets of love languages. It's a bit like me going to France on holiday. All I could speak there was English. I don't speak French. And of course, there's a tendency to assume that everybody I come across will speak English. Of course, when I went to France a few times, there were instances where people I spoke to didn't speak English and they just told me. And then I had to say bonjour or tried, at least made an attempt to say something to them in French. Interestingly, some of them then would say, oh, okay, we'll help you out. So in relationships, it's very easy to go in wanting to speak the same language that we like others to speak to us. And this can be one of the reasons why couples get into conflict and misunderstanding. And what underlines that conflict sometimes is the inability to communicate effectively and understand each other. So it's really important to know what are your love languages and what are your partner's love languages. The goal isn't to learn to speak it fluently because, as I said, when I went to France, I couldn't speak French fluently, but I made attempts at least to say bonjour or to say one word or another. Just that effort alone. And of course, practice make perfect. In relationships, the more we learn to speak, to recognize, and to begin to practice our partner's love language, the less opportunities we have for conflict or misunderstanding, because that connects with them. And what if both partners are really trying their best to speak each other's languages and offering goodwill and grace while they are learning? So, aside from what motivates us in relationships, we are driven by emotional language. So, it's important for us to know what they are and what matters to us. If you've not done your love language quiz and don't know what it is, do check it out. It's free. Do a quiz. If you search online for love language quiz, you will be able to know what your love languages might be. But just as we have love languages, we also have fight language. Let me introduce you to the concept of fight language. I'm sure you probably, when I describe it, you might recognize this. But here is a research. There's a research that says second marriages are even more fragile. Around 67% of second marriages and 73% of third marriages end in divorce, compared to roughly 50% of first marriages. Does that mean that everyone who's in a second or third marriage is doomed to fail? No. Does that mean everyone in a first marriage will succeed? No. But if we are able, it's just saying that first marriages, because you're coming in freshly, you're coming in new, you have maybe less baggages than if you'd gone through first, second, and now on your third, and you're able to navigate some of these challenges that you and your partner may be having. The research is suggesting that there are more indicators of success with first marriages. But to be able to navigate conflict successfully in first, second, or even third marriages, it's important to think about your fight language, right? Let's look at what these fight languages might be. For some people, the way they've learned to fight in their relationship is to be righteous. So, a righteous person who defaults to being righteous in a relationship is often thinking they're right. They insist on being right. All arguments, they are right. Their partner cannot have a word. It's always them who's right. For some people, their love language is retribution. They always seek payback. You did that last time. I'm going to get you back. I'm going to get my own word in, or I'm going to spring up something you did when we've even moved on. Nothing is happening. We're now in a good place. I'm going to still get my own um, last, I'm going to get my way. So they seek payback. The third one is indignation. The person who feels unfairly treated, feels like a victim. Why am I being treated like this? I always get the wrong end of the stick. They feel unfairly treated. And with this type of fight language, the person defaults to feeling like they're the victim in the relationship, like they don't have power, that they don't have control. And some people, the way they fight is through distraction. They avoid confrontation. For some of these people who use an avoidance as distraction as a way of avoiding confrontation, they might even result to humor, cracking jokes when something serious is being talked about or discussed. They want to just play it light. They don't want to be serious. Their partner saying, "Can we talk about this?" They result to just trying to crack a joke, make them smile. They're trying to distract from the topic. That's another fight language. And for some people, finally, it's about justification. They are rationalizing their behavior so they don't have to take accountability. They're like, well, if you hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have done this. Well, you started it first. Well, you did that 3 weeks ago, even though we're talking about something else now. They are justifying their behavior. They're trying to rationalize so they don't take accountability. So I'd like you to think, what's your fight language? Does that mean we all don't dip in every now and again into some of this? I'm sure most of us would use some of this every now and again just to protect ourselves from a difficult conversation or from having difficult conversations. But if these are things or behaviors we gravitate to all the time, then they've become a pattern. And this can often make conflict a perpetual thing. This can make conflict harder in relationships to deal with. And therefore, it's important to think about it because even in healthy relationships, we can occasionally move to any of these fight languages. But emotionally healthy relationships will be looking at a mediative approach. Both parties, both partners will be trying to come to a place where they can have a mediative approach in dealing with conflict. When I'm working with clients to think about what might be causing issues in their relationships, sometimes I'm looking at how differentiated they are. In my last video, I talked about differentiation. Differentiation being the ability of two people in a relationship to be able to balance their emotional connectedness with their sense of individuality. And so when couples are in conflict or can't seem to get on or can't seem to be able to have a week or a day without disagreement, we're looking at, are they self-defined? Do they understand that they are different to their partner? How much differentiation exists in their relationship? We're also looking at, how do they manage boundaries? Are they porous? Are they too rigid? Because porous or rigid boundaries are not probably good. They're not good for anyone in the relationship. Most healthy couples will be in a place where they have a healthy boundary between them. Most healthy couples have healthy boundaries. Do the partners show awareness that their partner is different from them? Do they explore what matters to them? Do you and your partner explore what matters to each other? Do you even manage the conflict or do you avoid it using some of these fight languages? Do you always escalate your conflict? You start from zero, next minute you're in 100? Or do you acknowledge the conflict and handle it? A good relationship is not one where there is no conflict. A good relationship is one, a good and healthy relationship is one where the couples acknowledge, handle, and find a way forward together in a way that helps, in a way that is appropriate and honoring and respectful for each party. Is each partner able to give and receive? Because if people in relationships are not able to compromise, give and receive, then there's likely to be conflict. I would ask you to consider, in managing your conflict, are you compromising or are you compromising self? When we're compromising, that's a healthy place to be because you're looking at exploring what matters to each other. But when we've gone too far and lost a sense of individuality, then we might get into a position where we're compromising self. And it's really important to think of that because that can lead to some of those things that I mentioned earlier that causes some people to start to feel like they are not recognized, that they're not respected for their contribution or for what they bring in the relationship. Let's look at the drama triangle, for example. The drama triangle has been around for many decades. It's part of a model called transactional analysis, and it helps us to explore what is underneath a couple's conflict or relational dynamics, especially where there's miscommunication, when they can't seem to understand each other or move the conflict forward. In the drama triangle, which is a dynamic that is often seen in relationship conflict, there are three roles that are playing at the same time. One person might be acting as a persecutor. That's the person who might seem to have the control or power, or that the other partner feels that they feels has the power. They might be seen as the persecutor. And then in the drama triangle, there's somebody else who feels like they are acting or performing a role of a rescuer. They're the people with a cape. They say, "You need me." They're always on a rescue mission. I know what's good for you, so I'm going to save you. Whereas somebody who's the persecutor is saying, if you listen to me, if you'd listen to me, everything would be fine. So they act as almost the bully. They act as almost the person who's causing the grief. They might be critical. They might be blaming. They might just be constantly at the other person's throat. And then, of course, regardless of the roles that these two people play, these two roles, regardless of these roles, each of these roles may end up being a victim. So somebody who feels like a persecutor or has been cast into a role of a persecutor, if they're unsuccessful, they will become the victim. They will start to feel like the victim because they're always blamed. It's always their fault. They're the bullying. They're the persecutor. They're critical, they're judgmental, all of that. Eventually, that person too might feel like they're the victim. But also, for the partner that is playing a rescuing role, there might come a time where they fail in their rescue mission, and that automatically moves them into a victim role because they feel like, why can't I just get it right? Why can't I save my spouse? Why can't I save this person I'm in a relationship with? Why wouldn't they accept my influence? And they start to feel like a victim. In the drama triangle, regardless of which roles people play between the rescuer and the persecutor, they will at some point become or start to feel like the victim, the one who's helpless, hopeless, dejected, and the dynamic just goes on and on. And these roles are seen in unhealthy relational dynamics. So, how do we move from the drama triangle to a winning triangle? How do we stop the drama, the conflict? Because we move around the triangle, as I said, until one of us moves out and into a very clear and healthy communication pattern, which reduces conflict. And if you want to changes in your relationship and want to manage and move conflict forward effectively, then it's important to begin to adopt new ways of relating. So rather than the persecutor, who is often perceived or acting as a bully, what if they move from this is your fault, you're not okay, but I am, so do what I tell you? What if they stop being critical and putting other people down, blaming, finger pointing? What if they actually move to a new role of being a challenger? A challenger is somebody who moves to challenging what's going on, what their partner is doing, but with very clear structure. There's somebody who begins to think of boundaries, exploring what's important to them, making their partner aware of that, who's able to state, I'm willing to listen to your story, and providing structure, maybe for 10 minutes. Somebody who's actively listening and exploring what is important to their partner. A persecutor who's moving out of the drama into a winning triangle will be acting as someone who is providing choices. So they're not rigid. They're assertive, but they're not rigid. Somebody who's saying somebody who's making the expectations clear. They're saying, I want you to keep your agreement. Please do what we've discussed, whatever that might be, put in the blank by so date. And what about the rescuer? A rescuer will be moving from being the savior, the one with the cape, and moving to a coach position. I'm sure you all know what a good coach might look like. Think of football coaches. They help bring the best out of people without doing their job for them. So rather than the rescuer saying, you need my help, you're not okay, but I am nice and I will fix you, because sometimes some people go into relationships with a pet project to fix the other person, and that never works. So rather than them rescuing by providing support to people when they don't want to, when that person can do it themselves, and feeling instead anxious and guilty when they are unsuccessful, if they move to a coach position, they're able to give clear support to their partner. They're able to give the message, I care about you and I know you're capable. They're not trying to step into their partner's shoes to do for them what they can do for themselves. They also actively listen, they state boundaries, they provide choices. They do nothing that the other person can do for themselves. And finally, to move from a drama triangle into a winning triangle, how about the victim moving from a mindset of helplessness and hopelessness, but instead moving to see themselves as a thriver, as a survivor, somebody who's survived, somebody who has choices, somebody who's going from poor me, I'm not okay, I don't have control, they have power over me, rather than feeling oppressed, hopeless, and ashamed, they're moving to a place where they're stating what they want. They're saying, this is what I need. These are my needs, desires, and wants. How can we work together to create an opportunity for me to have this? They state what they want. They take action. They keep agreements even. They ask themselves one critical question: how can I get what I want in a healthy way? Rather than avoiding seeing myself as a victim, how can I get what I want in a healthy way? And they remember that they make themselves and that they are stronger than they think. And the lots of the answers they need is within them. As we begin to wrap up, in thinking about how couples and people in relationships can move from an unhealthy conflict to a place where they're managing conflict effectively and moving more into a healthier space in their conflict management, it's important to also think about the four horsemen. Again, the four horsemen are behaviors that escalate conflict and damage a relationship. Over time, they are harmful behaviors that become a normal part of communication between partners. Dr. John Gottman, he created these four horsemen and described them as those things that can have a long term negative impact on relationships. And they are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. So, criticism is when you're in your relationship, you're dealing with problems through harsh, blaming, or hurtful expressions of judgment or disapproval. In someone who's using criticism is focusing on perceived personal flaws rather than changeable behaviors. Rather than them saying, I feel this way when you do XXX, they are looking at you're always very untidy. You are so mean. They use harsh words. Or they might say, the kitchen is a mess, you're such a slob. And then defensiveness is deflecting responsibility for one's own mistakes and behaviors or refusing to accept feedback, making excuses for behavior, shifting blame to your partner. No, it's not my fault I yelled, you were late, not me. And contempt is showing anger, disgust, or hostility toward your partner. So using put downs or insults, acting superior to your partner, using a mocking or sarcastic tone, and stonewalling, emotionally withdrawing, shutting down, or going silent during important discussions. Often a response to feeling overwhelmed, used to avoid difficult discussions or problems or underlying problems that go unresolved. So, what are the antidotes to these four horsemen? For criticism, it's important to have a gentle startup dealing with problems in a calm and gentle way, or saving the discussion for an appropriate time. For defensiveness, it's important to take responsibility, own up to your behavior without blaming others, avoid taking feedback personally, and using feedback as an opportunity to improve. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I'm sorry. And genuinely meaning it, not, I'm sorry you feel that way. Definitely not. And for contempt, rather than contempt, the antidote is sharing fondness and admiration, fostering a healthy relationship by regularly showing each other respect and appreciation. Because sometimes, as I said earlier on, when there's no respect or when there's a sense of lack of recognition and respect, that can make people feel, like they're not valued, that their contribution is not important. So being able to share fondness and admiration eliminates that feeling of lack of care or lack of respect. Recognizing your partner's strength and giving compliments. When was the last time you told your partner, I really appreciate you for what you've done or what you're doing for us as a family? When have you last said to your partner, thank you for looking after the kids so well? And for stonewalling, use self-soothing. So use relaxation techniques to calm yourself down and stay present with your partner. Agree to pause the conversation briefly. Of course, use deep breathing. I always say to my clients, think of this acronym ARE. So if you know that in going into a conversation, you're not going to be accessible, i.e., your mind is flustered, you are maybe still thinking about work, then maybe that's not the time to have that conversation. R is for responsive. If you're unlikely to be responsive in that conversation, then maybe you should ask for time and say, you know what, can we just pick this up again, maybe tomorrow, rather than just trying to engage, to have that conversation, which might not go well. And finally, E is for engaged. If you believe you're unlikely to be engaged in that conversation, then it's important for you to let your partner know and say, I don't have the headspace right now, but I promise you, can we have this conversation later tonight when I've had some time to just decompress after work? That is not an excuse to avoid the conversation. That's not to say, oh, phew, we don't have to talk about that now. No, it's using it responsibly. ARE, accessible, responsive, and engaged. If you're both, and if you decide to have that conversation, then it's really important that you remain accessible to your own emotions, feelings, responsive, and engaged with your partner. Finally, it's important to talk about the sound relationship house because this helps to manage conflict in a healthy way and effectively. Dr. John Gottman gave a model for what a sound relationship should look like, and he presented it as a house, as a sound relationship house. We'll put the image on the screen. It says, in a sound relationship house, the pillars are trust and commitment. So, for couples who want to manage conflict effectively in a healthy way, it's important to have their house built with two strong pillars of trust and commitment. And beginning to build the foundation from the ground up of building love maps, knowing each other's world. The more you know about your partner, the more that you can have goodwill, the more you can understand what matters to them. And I already talked about sharing fondness and admiration because this helps put some of those four horsemen at bay. And rather than turning against each other or away from each other, it's important that you are able to turn towards each other during times of conflict to be able to come together and say, how do we move this forward? How do we move this conflict forward? And not attack each other and see each other as enemies. It's important to maintain a positive perspective, because the more positive perspective you have, the better and expansive your worldview will be about that conversation. Then you're going to come into it open minded and curious. You're not going to think, oh, they're just trying to do whatever, they don't have my best interest at heart. You have a positive perspective that your partner means well, they want the best for you, and so do you. That you're able, in managing conflict, you're accepting your partner's influence. Because if you can't accept your partner's influence, then you're unlikely to be able to move conflict forward in a healthy and clear way. That you and your partner are able to dialogue about problems, not avoiding them. And that you are able to hold on to your emotions and practice self-soothing, your ability to stay grounded, to breathe, and to not get hijacked by what happened to you 20 years ago, but to be able to recognize what's going on for me right now. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Remember, I said being accessible, being engaged, and also being able to practice self-soothing. When something is trying to throw you out of your feelings, to be able to say, actually, I need a moment, I need to center myself, I need to breathe, whatever it is that helps you to soothe and to ground yourself, to be able to do that. That helps manage conflict and move it forward into a healthy place. And in a sound relationship house, couples who make life dreams come true are likely to be able to manage conflict well and healthily. Making life dreams come true. I talked about self expression, self actualization, being able to make sacrifices for each other and being able to make life dreams come true is likely to bring harmony into a relationship. And finally, couples who create shared meaning are able to manage conflict in a healthier way, because they're now thinking about their purpose as a couple. They're thinking we're more than the two of us. We talked about earlier on, in an earlier video, about being able to transcend beyond just the two of you and having synergy. So the ability to create shared meaning helps couples to foster a more harmonious relationship. And even if there is conflict, remember, the absence of conflict does not mean that the relationship is healthy. It might be that they're just avoidant. But the ability to manage conflict, improve shared understanding, and move things forward, exploring what matters to each other, is likely to put the couple in a place where they have a sound relationship house. Now, let's look at the fourth floor of this sound relationship house. On the fourth floor of of Dr. John Gottman's sound relationship house, it states that the couples who are in this house or have this model of their relationship is a couple that has a positive perspective. So these are couples who maintain a positive, not negative perspective. They see the perspectives of others. They consider, they're curious, they're open to even changing their own perspectives once new evidence come to light. These types of couples have a positive disposition that enables them to not make assumptions or start to mind read and think they know what their partner might be up to. They have a positive perspective, and this is important for managing healthy relational dynamics and reducing conflict. Then there is the managing of conflict. How And there is, in the sound relationship house, the way that conflict is managed is really important. Do you accept your partner's influence? Can they influence your thoughts, your behavior, your opinions? Do you dialogue about problems? Do you explore it or do you avoid it? And do you practice self-soothing? Self-soothing is your ability to keep yourself emotionally regulated rather than reacting. So you respond so that you are able to respond rather than react out of your emotions. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to practice self-soothing. Think of what makes you grounded. Is that music? Is that breathing? Is it recognizing that I'm really feeling quite emotional? I'm feeling angry. My heart is racing. My thoughts are getting jumbled. I'm beginning to get activated, and being able to slow all of that down. Remember, we talked about accessibility. If being able to access your emotions is really important to be able to understand what's going on for you, and therefore to be able to practice self-soothing. And then couples who are in this have this model of a sound relationship house, they make life dreams come true. They help each other to fulfill their actualization dreams, to self-actualize. They help each other to achieve goals, their dreams. They don't just they're not self-centered to the point that it's all about them. It doesn't matter what's happening for their partner. They help each other to make life dreams come true. And finally, on the topmost floor of this sound relationship house is creating shared meaning. So couples who are able to create shared meaning have a sound, solid relationship house. If you remember in my last video, we talked about synergy and the ability and the ability for couples to reach a point in their relational stage where it's not just about the two of them, but it's about legacy. It's about two of us. It's not just about two of us. We're more than two of us. It's about legacy. It's about purpose, and being able to create shared meaning in a sound relationship house helps couples to move to a healthier relational dynamics, because they will be seeking the best of each other. They will be managing conflict effectively, dialoguing about problems, because they don't want it to create problems or bottlenecks in the future. They want to practice self-soothing so they can help each other make life dreams come true. They have positive perspective. They turn towards instead of away. They share fondness and admiration. They are supported by trust and commitment in the relationship, and they build love maps. They know one another's love world or another's world. And all of this helps make a couple to move into a healthier pattern, to move into a place where they have sound relationship. As we finish, I want you to think of the wish for your relationship or marriage. Is your relationship how you would like it to be? If not, what do you feel is the reason for your relationship challenges or conflict? How committed are you and your partner to get your relationship to the way you would want it to feel and to be? And how would you like to increase understanding or improve understanding and reduce unnecessary conflict in your relationship? That is all we have time for tonight or today. And I'd like to say thank you for listening. If you're not following me on YouTube, do so, because that will enable you to be notified when I have new videos. Also, if you're not following me on Instagram, do follow, do share my posts. And also, I'm planning an exciting workshop that will be free. I said it, free, in the next couple of weeks and in a few months' time. I'm kickstarting a free workshop called Free to Be Me. And then at a later date, I will be also holding another workshop called Free to Be Us. And so if this is of interest and you want to be notified, then please follow and do subscribe. Consider subscribing, but don't actually consider. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell. If you would like some support or know someone who needs support, do check out my website at mosaiclivingtherapy.com. mosaiclivingtherapy.com. And there I am able to offer some help, whether that's through one-to-one therapy sessions, or if I'm not available, to be able to signpost you to other colleagues who are brilliant therapists and may be able to help you and your loved ones. Until next time, it's goodbye.